Hey comic book fans, this is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and today we're doing a little recap from Heroes Con 2023 Day 2. Now it was a big day today. This is the big day where you get the biggest crowds, and it was pretty packed in there, but my wife and I were talking about it later, and she said that it wasn't quite as packed as she felt it was last year. But last year we were coming off of a year where we didn't have a con because of COVID down here, and maybe that had something to do with it. But I tell you what, when I went in this morning, it felt like it was packed. And I was on a mission this morning. Number one goal today was to get Alan Davis on that X-Men 213, have it witnessed by CGC, and eventually get that into CGC, submit that as well. So number one thing was accomplished first thing this morning. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do that first thing because he had a signing from 9:30 until 10:30. Well, the doors open at 10 o'clock, and that means that there's already a line for Alan Davis. There was already going to be VIPs that were in there earlier, and then I had the problem of trying to find a witness. And luckily I was able to contact my representative from CGC, who was able to get someone there at the table just in time for me to get up there and get Alan Davis to sign the book, and we got it over to CGC, and eventually we got it submitted later in the day once I finished up with all of the autographs that I wanted to submit to CGC. But we'll go over that in a little bit. But number one goal of the day was definitely taken care of. And then the second person that I wanted to get something slabbed from, witnessed and slabbed from, was Roy Thomas. And Roy Thomas was only going to be here today, one day only, so you knew there was going to be a big line for him. And I was able to do that with the help of my wife. My wonderful wife ended up spotting me in line and waited for Roy Thomas because he took all day. And she stayed in line while I went out and got a lot of the other autographs that I just wanted on books, nothing to be submitted or anything, but just other autographs that I was able to knock off a big part of that list while she held my place in line. But we were able to get the two books that I had for Roy Thomas that was going to go to CGC. I did two copies of X-Men Legends #1 with the exclusive cover from Unknown Comics by Art Adams. And Art Adams is going to be doing a signing for CGC later this year, and I guess that submission deadline's coming up, I think in July. Well, the idea was I was going to get Roy Thomas on those books, have CGC witness them, and we would submit them and send them right to that signing. And that's what we did. We ended up doing that. So those books will go to CGC and it will go right to the Art Adams signing. And that basically wiped me out of the day. As soon as we took care of that, we ended up giving them every one of the books that I had gotten signed over the weekend, the last 2 days, that I was going to submit, and we took them all out, and it ended up being 3 different forms that we had to fill out because there were a couple of Jim Sterankos in there, which was a different tier than all the modern books that I had. And then a separate order was for that Art Adams Roy Thomas book because it's going to a different place than the other two. And it took forever to get that done, but once we were done with CGC completely, it was like a little bit of relief. It's like, oh, what do you want to do now? So finally we get to go to the room, and I started working on, I had knocked down some of the autographs, and I finally got to go and finish up some of the other ones. My wife went around with me, and she took some great photos. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play some footage from the con. And you'll see some of the people that I met during the day and took photos with and got autographs from. I don't think we got everybody, but we did a big number of them. And then we'll go over all the books that I got signed today and some of the artwork I got signed today. And we'll talk about what my plans are for tomorrow, for day 3. So sit back, enjoy this montage, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that little montage. I got to meet a lot of great artists. Thankfully, my wife was with me most of the day, and we got to take a lot of photos with some of these guys. But let's just get right into it, and I'll go over some of the books and show you all some of the things I got signed today. So we talked about Roy Thomas in the intro there. Well, I got some other books, and what was nice about that was he was taking submissions for the Heroes Initiative, the Legal Defense Fund, and small donation for the books that you were getting signed for your collection. The problem was, if you wanted anything else, prints, cards, original art, anything like that, it was considered a specialty item, and he was there was definitely a $10 a piece charge on some of those things. I think prints were even larger, and if I remember from last year when I got some original art signed, it was even more than that, and I just remember being very expensive last year with Roy Thomas. Well, this year, after those 2 books that went to CGC, I had 4 other books here, and let me just show you what I've got signed. And it was just really for PC type things I had on hand. Nothing, it was just things I like. This was a reprint. This is a True Believers reprint of, I believe it was Avengers 89. It's the first issue or one of the first issues of the Kree Skrull War, and it's done by the legendary artist Sal Buscema. And you're going to see that again right here because Roy and Sal worked on a lot of Avengers books together back during his time. This is it's another reprint. It's another True Believers reprint of, I believe this is Avengers 71, or is it 72? I never can remember. But this is the reprinting of what technically I guess is the first appearance of the Invaders, the original team from World War II, Captain America, Human Torch, and the Submariner. And just wonderful Sal Buscema artwork, Kang appearance, Grandmaster appearance. And then the other 2 books I got signed were the same. They were both reprints of the same book, but different printings. This was the True Believers Conan the Barbarian. Of course, Roy Thomas wrote this. And you can see his signature right up there at the top in the trade dress. And then the same book, but it's just straight up a facsimile reprint, not a True Believers reprint. And that's with Roy Thomas up there. All right, so moving on from that, let me show you this. This is, I'm going to mispronounce this, Lionel Yu. I believe that's how you say it. I'm not sure. But he ended up signing 2 copies of his work he did with Secret Invasion. And you can see it there in red. Here, let me zoom in on that. You see that right there? And this copy, it's only him on there. But let me show you the other one. The other one, you can see his autograph right there. But over here, I've actually got Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Morales. Got them years ago, waiting to see if I'd ever get a chance to see you, and there it is. Well, I bought a second copy, and luckily in Baltimore later this year, Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Morales are both going to be there. So I'm going to add them to this book too. So I'll end up with having 2 copies of that signed. And then I actually have an original piece of artwork from you. And this is from New Avengers. Let me zoom back. There you go. So you can see the whole thing. You can see Spider-Man, Peter Parker there, and there's Luke Cage in there, and some of the Avengers. I think you got Hawkeye as Ronin maybe. And this is from, we figured it out. It's issue number 34. It was so light up here at the top that I never even saw it. With it being in the Mylar, it was a little hard. The sleeve, it was a little hard to see what it was, but we sat there and looked at it, and his handlers and everything, everybody looked at it and was like, oh, it's a nice piece. And it is. It was not an expensive piece, or else I probably wouldn't have been able to pick it up, but I picked this up probably years ago off of eBay. I know it wasn't too expensive, and I mean, there is definitely some big artwork that he had on his wall behind him with some big characters, but I'm happy to have this piece and actually own a piece of original artwork from him. So I'll just go down let's start with, I've got the original artwork just sitting right here. Let's go through this. This is Jeff Isherwood, and it was somebody that wasn't on my radar, and at the last second, I'm going over the list, and I'm going through my portfolios of original artwork, and I come across these 2 pages from the what was this? It was the Suicide Squad issues. Now this is from issue 57 and 60. And here, I'll just do one at a time so you can see it. This one actually has Aquaman on there. Let me show you some of that right there. And for the life of me, I don't remember where I got this. It had to be from a dealer, but was it at a show or was it off of eBay? I honestly, it was so long ago, I can't imagine picking this up at a show. I don't know why I would have picked this up. I don't know. But beautiful artwork. You got the Enchantress right there. Of course, we remember her from the Suicide Squad movie. And you got some beautiful artwork. And I never thought much about this, but I did a quick look up, and it's like, it turns out Jeff Isherwood actually did the artwork, did the pencils on this. And I'm going, okay, well, it's coming with me to the show. And as you can see, he signed both of them down here in the bottom corner right there. And I also got him in my Marvel 50 Years of Marvel book that I continue to add Marvel artists to. So did pretty good on that. I added some artists definitely from today. You is one of those as well. So that was a book. I'm not going to bring it out because it's getting a little fragile, so I'm not going to mishandle it here on the camera, but know that I got the artwork from Isherwood as well as my Marvel book. All right, more comics that I got today. This is X Factor number 38. Of course, it's by Luis and Walt Simonson. Now, it's not signed on the front. I got this years and years ago when they lived in the Bethesda. I was going to say in the Silver Spring area, and they would do the Serendipity shows in the Maryland area. And back in the day when artists signed on the front cover. And look right there. Let me see. I don't know if it's going to zoom in. There we go. You can see they had their signatures, and I ended up adding Al Milgrom, who did the inking on this book right here. So that's pretty cool. Actually, it's a really good issue. I think Al Milgrom does a really good job at inking. I can't say I'm as big a fan of his pencils, but his inking is really good. And I kind of wish I'd had this on the cover, but I'm not going to do that. I've already got Walt and Louise on there. They're going to be in Baltimore later this year. It would be under consideration, but right now, just having this on the PC is really good. And also from Al Milgrom, I got some Marvel Fanfare books. And again, I'm going to apologize for the bagging boards with all the tape. I did this because I was originally going to add Jim Shooter to this too, but honestly, I stopped with a lot of Jim Shooter and Tom DeFalco signing today because the prices were going up. The money was flying out of the wallet again, and I kind of stopped at adding an editor and an editor-in-chief on these. But Al Milgrom actually contributed more on these Marvel Fanfares than just being an editor. He did artwork and kind of interjected himself into these issues. It was pretty cool that you could see him doing artwork. You could see him being a character in some of the stories. Not the main stories, but the in-between stories. But this is, if you can tell what this is part of that. And the next two are all part of that legendary Black Widow run, that storyline where by the legendary artist, George Perez. And you got Al Milgrom right up there, and you can hardly see it because it's covered up with tape, but you can see a little bit of ink sticking over here. Well, that's by George Perez. He's in there right now, and I'm trying to think somewhere. I think I've got it covered up down here. Brett Bredding did Breeding. I never could remember how you say that. He did the inking, so I've got him on there as well. And let's see, one of the other issues, and forgive me, that was issue 10. I don't remember if I think this was the last issue, or this was number 12. Maybe this is number 12. There's Al Milgrom right there. And you can see a little bit of the George Perez autograph over here to the side, but down here at the bottom, and it's really hard to see. I'll zoom in on that. That's Rick Leonardi. He did a pinup gallery in the back of this book, so that's why I added him to this. And then this Marvel Fanfare was the last of that storyline, and you've got an Art Adams cover. And I plan on getting this signed later this year in Baltimore when he's in Baltimore for that. But Al added his signature right there, and of course you can see a character that he did of himself right here up in the trade dress box, the indicia box. And there's George Perez's autograph. let's see if you can zoom in. It's so hard to see because for some reason I did silver on white. That didn't make any sense. And right here, let's see, who else do I got up there? I've got, this is Charles Vess. I actually got him today on this. He did a small, I think a Warriors 3 story that's in this. And also in this book, down here at the bottom, is John Beatty, who did the inking on this issue as well. So this one's actually getting pretty good. Again, I could have added Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief, but again, his prices were just going up. In fact, I heard today that he raised these prices from yesterday from $20 to $30, and he told somebody else that it was going to be $40, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to play that game. I'm just not going to add you to this book. It's not that important to add you to this book. But I will add Art Adams later this year. And while we're on this, we're just going to crisscross a little bit here. We're talking about Al Milgrom on all those books. Well, I actually had a bunch of original artwork that Ron Friends had done, and I brought that with me because not only did Al Milgrom do the inking on a lot of these pages, the Tom DeFalco actually wrote these pages. So let me show you some of the Thunderstrike and Thor pages that I've got. Some of these are going to be with Tom DeFalco autographs, and some of these are going, I think most of these, except for a few, well, we'll see. There's some of these are going to be with Al Milgrom, and some are going to be with Tom DeFalco. It's crisscrossing a little bit, but this is a page from Thunderstrike. I think this is issue number 8, and there's a lot of detail in there. And of course, you've got Ron Friends, and look down here at the bottom. We've got Ron Friends' autograph, and there's Al. He added that, and then off to the side right there is Tom DeFalco. I added both of those guys today. Ron Friends was also there today, but I'd already added that. So that was a really nice, that's just a beautiful page. You don't have to actually have the main Marvel characters on a page to be really good. This is just a spectacular page. And now this was an issue from Thor. I think it was issue 395 or 396. Now this was not an Al Milgrom page. It was still Ron Friends, but Brett Breding, I'm going to slaughter these today, I think. He had signed this at a con a few years ago, but we added Tom DeFalco over here to the side. He was writing Thor for a long time as well. And yeah, it's just a very nice page there. It doesn't have Thor necessarily on that. Well, he does up here at the top right there. But still a nice page. A lot of these pages I had from Ron Friends, they may not have been the main pages when I was picking these up. I mean, quite honestly, I bought these back in the early 90s, 90, 91, 92. And there was a dealer, an art dealer. Well, he was a comic book store, but he had a ton of artwork, both from Sal Buscema and Ron Friends. And he was selling most of the artwork for $5 a page. And honestly, I wasn't making a lot of money, and I couldn't afford to buy a ton. But I picked up as much as I could, but I couldn't pick up the more expensive pages because a lot of them were already gone. But it was nice to be able to pick up a handful of these. I've got some great Sal Buscema Hulk pages that I still have a handful of those left, but I still have, of course, a handful of these Ron Friend pages too. Let me show you this one. This is from Thor 421, and this one I added Tom DeFalco today, and I think I've got another page there too from a different issue, but if you can see, you've got Hercules there, and let's zoom in on that and see if you can recognize the inker on that. I mean, it's some beautiful line work. This is from another legendary Marvel artist, Joe Sinnott, and that's just absolutely gorgeous. And the same goes for the next 2 pages. This is from Thor 411. You got Hercules on there with Eric Masterson. And down here at the bottom, Ron Friends, of course, like I said, signed us a few years ago. There's Tom DeFalco. I added it today, but let me show you something on the back. On the back of this artwork, when I bought it, there's Joe Sinnott's autograph on the back of that artwork right there. So that's pretty cool. And the same goes for this page. This is from 416, and you've got some real dynamic images of Thor and Masterson again. And again by Ron Friends, Tom DeFalco, and another autograph by Joe Sennett. And he did that. He signed this back in December of 1989. So that was really nice. I've gotten some autographs. I had gotten some autographs from him years ago. I had mailed away, I want to say about 2010, 2012, Joe Sennett. And he actually did some sketches for me. On the little sketch cards. Actually, I'm going to show you some of those cards later today, but he did some sketches on there, did a thing and a Human Torch that were just beautiful, and then he signed some autograph cards as well. So that was always very special. And then the last page I've got here that I wanted to show you from Tom DeFalco was a page I picked off of eBay. It wasn't expensive, but it's by Sal Buscema. I should say it's inked by Sal Buscema. You've got Ron Friends down here, and when I bought this page, I want to say that it was already autographed by Sal. So since then I had added Ron Friends and Tom DeFalco to that, but it is a beautiful, this is from Spider Girl. I'm not sure which issue. It's issue 21. So you got some really nice artwork right there. So that was it from what I got from Al Milgrom, but then as I was showing you that, what did I show you? I also got some Tom DeFalco autographs on the original artwork. Well, I also got some comic books from Tom DeFalco. This is Spider-Man 259, and you can see his autograph right up here at the top. And you've got Ron Friends. I got him last year on this copy, and very nice. This is one that would probably be nice to add Jim Shooter to that, because it's during that era where we had the black uniform. You can see it up here as well. But this is the origin of Mary Jane. And here, one more another Spider-Man. I'd already had this one done. Rick Leonardi had already signed this years ago. In fact, I don't even remember what year he signed it, but he signed that. But since Tom DeFalco was writing Spider-Man at the time, I wanted to add him to that, so he added that right there. And then for the long time, he actually had another long run on the Fantastic Four with the artist Paul Ryan, and I'd had some books signed by Paul Ryan years ago before he passed away. And here's Fantastic Four number 375. Look at that, guys. It's very sparkly. There's Paul Ryan's autograph down here at the bottom, but Tom DeFalco, where did he do? Oh yeah, it's right there. He added that. Of course, you've got, this is the period where you have that infamous Sue Storm uniform. And then one more issue of Fantastic Four. This is 381. And there was Paul Ryan's autograph right there. And then we added Tom DeFalco right there. And then the last issue that I ended up getting from Tom DeFalco today, I'd already gotten Jim Shooter to sign this yesterday, and I probably showed it to you yesterday. John Romita Jr. had signed it for me a year ago. And so I added Tom DeFalco to this. Now this is with an issue that I did add the editor and the editor-in-chief. And I talked about on one of my videos the other day, this is a book that I wish I had been able to meet Senior, John Romita Sr., before he passed away a couple of days ago, obviously. But it would have been nice to have added him to this, because he did the inking to his son's artwork on this issue. And I always thought that was pretty cool. And I think we're going to have to wait for, I believe it's Roger Stern who is writing this. And that is definitely, that's confirmed. That's Roger Stern wrote this. And I think I've ran across him at least once in a show over the years. So this is going to be one of those, when we're running across Roger Stern again, we're going to end up having to have a lot of stuff to get signed. It's going to be another one of these, just like Tom DeFalco was today. It's going to be one of those, it's going to get expensive real quick, because there's so many things you've gotten signed by other people that you want to add him to it. So let me run down, and maybe I'll try to be a little bit quicker here with some of the other books that I got. I ended up getting Jay Lee to sign some of these books. This was a Virgin cover to Grimm #1, and you can see his beautiful signature down there in the bottom. And this was such a beautiful cover. When I was thumbing through books to pull, and I found this, and I didn't even realize I had it, but it's so light that I knew that the signature down at the bottom like that was going to be beautiful. He did it in red to match the outfit, so that was nice. And then two other Jay Lee ones I got signed were the same book but different covers. These are reprints that have new covers, and it was sponsored by, I'm not sure who it was sponsored by. It was an exclusive cover from somebody, but it's Boys #3 with a homage to Spider-Man 129, and you can see at the top, well, actually, let's start with the bottom. We've got Jay Lee. He added it down here, but at the top I've got Garth Ennis, who signed this, and honestly, I had wanted to get this graded probably by CBCS at some point, because I knew I was going to add Jay Lee at some point. And before I even had a chance, I mean, I guess I should have told him no at the beginning, but who do you want to make it out to? And like, oh, so what? He actually just went, so what's your name? And then he goes, to Rusty. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't planning on doing that. But at least on this copy, this was a more regular copy of that. The other one was a virgin copy. And I'm sorry that you can't see the cover as well on this one, but let's zoom in a little bit, and you can see the Jay Lee autograph right here in the dark. He did it in silver, so it would pop out a little bit. And there's Garth Ennis up there. So I could always submit this to CBCS. I guess I could do both of them, but who, honestly, do you want, if I ever sold it, who would want a book to Rusty? I mean, there's not a lot of Rustys out there, right? So that was for Jay Lee. And then I did go by David Peterson's, the creator of Mouse Guard. I did go by his table, and I continue to pick up more of his books that he did covers to for Usagi Yojimbo. Now this was, I did 2 issues of 2 runs that he did. It was they were reprinting 5-issue story arcs, or 5 issues of, or 6 issues of Usagi Yojimbo. And so what I did was, he had done the covers for these reprints. So this is Usagi Yojimbo Dragon Bellow Conspiracy. And you can see his autograph right up here in this beautiful illustration of Usagi Yojimbo. And I keep getting copies of some of these books signed by him with the hope that Stan Sakai will come across the country at some point now that COVID is kind of over, and he will go to one of the cons out here on the East Coast again. And here's the other one. This is Lone Goat and Kid. This is the first issue in the little story arc that they reprinted. And you've got this, another beautiful cover, and there's his signature right up there. All right. Now, these were books right here from my childhood. I had found them at a con just a few weeks ago, and I picked them up. They're not anything that's ever going to get graded. It was done just as a personal connection to my childhood. And I picked up a copy of E-Man number 2 and number 3. And these are books I grew up with. These are from Charlton Comics, and you've got Joe's, is it Staten or Staten? Staten? I believe it's Staten. And he signed it right there. And signed it right there. I did a little research to figure out where the best spots were to sign on these books. And he was very nice, and I was just telling him, I said, these were just great books from my childhood. It wasn't all about Marvel and DC back then. You definitely had a lot of Gold Key, a lot of Disney books, Richie Rich, Little Dot, Baby Huey, as well as books from Charlton like E-Man. I loved E-Man. It was some really weird artwork, and just, I don't know, it was so different. It was to me, it was a little bit of psychedelic, out of the box kind of stuff, and just loved them. And they were quick stories too, and you could follow them pretty easy. But that was kind of cool to get signed. And let's see what else. Joe Rubenstein was here, and I had a bunch of books from him, but again, it was a case where money was getting short, and I had a bunch of books that I decided just to pull back from. It just like, do I really need all of these? Like, no, you don't need to get everything signed, but there were a few things I did kind of want to add to. He did add a signature to the facsimile to Wolverine 1, the limited series, and this is one I showed you yesterday with Chris Claremont, and he kind of had a very nice, a dried out gold marker. You can kind of see it right there. That could have been much better. But then the one of the other issues that I got him to sign was this. This is Captain America 255. And the reason I got him to sign this, and it's on the inside cover, is dates when I got the first signature. Look down here at the bottom, and you can see where he signed, but right beside it is John Byrne. And this is the one time I got to meet John Byrne in person. This is a book that I had taken to get signed. And as a book, I decided to pull out to get Rubenstein on here, but one of the other reasons that I decided to do this, and again, it's another Roger Stern book, so I'll wait on Roger Stern at some point. And again, Jim Shooter is editor-in-chief. I suppose I could still add him tomorrow if I wanted to, but might just wait on that. But something that I never realized until I started doing all the research on this book is this is a Frank Miller cover, and like I've had a chance the last year to meet Frank Miller. It gives me hope that he will be back relatively soon in the next couple of years, I hope, and I would love to add him to this book as well now. So I'm a real big fan of getting books with multiple people on there. It's in some cases it's really just adding up expenses though. So that's one of the reasons, like I said, I pulled back from Joe Rubenstein on some of the other books. I had some Justice League of America books that I like, it's okay. They weren't key books necessarily. They were signed, but I don't even know why I got some of them signed, to be honest with you. All right, continuing on. So you saw this yesterday that I had gotten. I had a copy of this. This is Berserker #1. The exclusive cover from Cards, Comics, and Collectibles in Baltimore, Maryland by the artist J.G. Jones. And I had two copies of this. If you remember yesterday's show, I had first copy was already signed by Ron Garney, and I wanted to get Matt Kindt on it. And on the second one, I wanted to add both artists, writer and artist. They're both artists, actually. I wanted to add both of them to the one that was unsigned, and that's what this copy was. Now, I got Matt Kindt on this yesterday. You can see his autograph right here. But this right here, I'm going to zoom in. Ron Garney is a very nice guy who has awful pens. His silver pen was all dried up, and his black marker was all dried up and streaky when he decided that he was going to sign over it because it didn't look good. Let me zoom in. Look at that. I mean, he literally took a freaking dump on this book. And I'm going, thank you very much. I appreciate that. What am I going to say? But at least the other copy that I got him to sign last year in Baltimore, at least it was decent. But the case where you kind of just want to give the artist, the writer, give them your pen, because you're going to want the best autograph you can on these. You have your pens ready to go. You know they work. Well, this pen basically sucked ass. So there you go. Got a great copy of that. I might have to give that as a giveaway just to get it out of my PC. Maybe you might appreciate it more than I will, but that was just him taking a huge dump on my comic today. And then the last two books I've got to show you were by some of the artists and people that I'd already gotten today that we've talked about, but they are kind of jam pieces. And I'll start with this one. Let's go back to Marvel Fanfare. This is the very first issue. And the reason I wanted to get this, and I might have talked about this, I did talk about it yesterday because I did add Jim Shooter yesterday, but I went ahead, and Chris Claremont, of course, at the top, but right up here, we added Michael Golden, who did the art in this book, the main story, and the cover. And then down here at the bottom, Al Milgrom, of course, the editor of this book. And again, like I said earlier, there's more to what he does on these books than just doing the editing. He does interject himself, and he does have artwork in these books. But I added him to this, and with the hopes of someday getting Frank Miller to this piece, I doubt it, but I'd love to get John Byrne, Terry Alston, and then Paul Smith. That would be a really cool piece, but at this point, I'm going to and Jim Shooter as well, going back to the editor-in-chief stuff. But, I'm sorry, Jim Shooter's already on here. What I'm talking about, I'm losing my mind. But adding those guys, that would be a really cool piece to have, but I don't think John Byrne's ever going to send another autograph, the way I hear things. But this piece right here actually is really turning into a jam piece, because take a look at this. I showed you this yesterday. It's X-Men Heroes for Hope, and I had added Claremont yesterday. And I'm looking on, say, who all did I get? Him and Jim Shooter I added yesterday. But I literally added Mike Grell. I'm reading from the back here, by the way. Charles Vess, Al Milgrom, Joe Rubinstein, and John Workman, all to this cover. And let me just zoom in so you guys can see a little bit of that. Look at all those autographs on there. And John Workman signed right across Wolverine's crotch there in the dark, and you can hardly see his autograph. But that's looking pretty good. I'm taking this to Baltimore. And here, let me read the list of who's going to be in Baltimore. You've got Louise Simonson. I believe Walt's in here too, but I got to double check on that one. But I've got Steve Rude, Howard Chaykin, Klaus Janson, and of course the cover here by Art Adams. Now, the one person that I did not get at this con right here was John Romita Jr. And as everybody knows, the news by this point is Senior passed away just a few days ago, and as anticipated, Junior is not here at this con. So save this, and hopefully we'll run into him again in better days. And then the last things that we ended up getting signed today, well, actually, one of these, a couple of these from yesterday, and I didn't show them off, but I'll go ahead and do it right now because I've got a couple of these. That we got some more cards from the autographedcard.com. This is a Comic Book Greats card, and as you can see, we've got Chris Claremont on there. And then my wife actually got this signed. She went in front of me before I got Rolly Thomas. She got Rolly Thomas on one of those cards. And then we also went by Michael Cho's table again. My wife was being really nice to one of her co-workers, and she ended up getting Michael Cho to do a quick sketch card. So you can see, it was pretty cool, and he actually did it for free, which was really nice too. Trust me, I'll take as much free as I can get at this con. And then yesterday, the last thing I'd gotten, one of the last things I got signed was, Bone, issue number 1, that again, it was a book I submitted to CGC today. But I also got him to do one of those cards. There's Jeff Smith right there. And then, because he was doing sketches for everybody, instead of doing a big sketch on a board or a sketchbook or anything like that, which I didn't have a lot of, I had him do it on one of the autographedcard.com's sketch cards right there. And I don't think I showed you this off before, but you can see they've got this area for a sketch right there, and then a place for them to put a signature. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I got a sketch from Jeff Smith on that right there. But that's it, guys. That's everything from day 2. And what did you not see? I didn't buy anything today, but it doesn't mean I didn't spend a lot of money. There was a lot of money going out of my pocket to pay for these autographs. It was not cheap. I mean, $10, $10. You go to Michael Golden, it's like, oh, that's going to be $30. Like, oh, you just kind of you either do it or you don't. And by that point, you just kind of do it. And I did pull back. I pulled back on Al Milgrom. I didn't get everything signed. I pulled back on DeFalco and Rubinstein. It's like, that's okay. I don't need all of this signed. So in the end, I got everything signed I pretty much wanted to, except for the books that I have for Scotty Young. He had already finished by the day. By 4 o'clock, he was already gone. I'm going to try to get him tomorrow on Sunday. And I've got about 4 books I'd like him to get signed. I do have some other books that were unsigned that I don't know. You know, I'm sitting here, I'm already double questioning myself on Joe Rubinstein. I've got those JLA books that it's already signed by DeMathis, Griffin, and Adam Hughes. Do I get Rubinstein on there too? I've got several of those, but the big storyline when Adam Hughes started doing the art for that book, do I get Rubinstein on there too? I don't know. We'll see how the day goes. But to be quite honest, my plans for day 2 are going to be me going through comic book dealers and looking at comics. Now, I did spend some time today looking at comics. I have a little notebook. I was writing down vendor numbers, booth numbers, and looking at some of the books. And I got about, I wouldn't say quite halfway through, but I did get a chance to look at a bunch of books, put some prices down, and kind of determine if I'm going to go back to that booth or not. And some of them are some really high-grade booths. I mean, you can tell they had a lot of high-grade books, and the prices reflected the quality of the books overall that they had. And I'm going, I don't know if I could go there. I don't know if I'm going to get the kind of deal. Their prices seemed overpriced already. But there were a few places where there was a few books I'm looking for that, okay, we're in the ballpark. We are in the ballpark on some things. And we'll see how tomorrow goes. I will try to do, I know it's going to be a late night tomorrow because we're actually going to be traveling back towards Maryland. We're not going to make it all the way. So I don't know if I'm going to get that show done anytime soon tomorrow night. But the idea is tomorrow after the show to do a recap show and to kind of show off the books that I hopefully will pick up at some point on Sunday. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending all this time with me. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button. And if you can, hit that subscribe button, and definitely hit the notification bell, because that way it will allow you to know when I put on some of these shows like this, well, that'll just pop up like this. You'll know that they come on. And as well as let you know that, as a reminder, that I have shows every Monday and Friday at 10 a.m. as well. So anyway, that's it for today, guys. I'm out of here. You all have a good night. I will see you tomorrow at the con. Hopefully I'll get to see some more of you. I did meet some fans out there today that recognized me. That was pretty cool. And tomorrow we'll wrap it up. Have a great time, and we'll get back to Maryland here in the next day or so. So that's it. Take care, guys. And before I go, remember, every comic has a story.